I met a bright young probationary teacher this week, full of enthusiasm for his job, his school, his pupils. But when I asked him of his plans for the future, his enthusiasm visibly dimmed. His hope was replaced by anxiety and pessimism. I discovered that both he and his wife are probationers, and both are so depressed at their job prospects they are actively considering finding work in Spain. Now, this is not the first time that either I or other members here will have heard such a story. But how long, do I ask, how long do we have to hear this before the Minister takes action to help? For how many years is the Minister willing to preside over this appalling loss of talent? The contrast with the record of the previous administration could not be greater. The same teacher was in charge of a small group of pupils, and I was asked, as MSPs often are, what achievements we are most proud of here in the Scottish Parliament. Like many, I did mention the smoking ban first, like many of us pointed to that, but I went on, as I nearly always do, to point to the difference that we have made over the last decade to our schools and to the life chances of so many young people. New school buildings, smaller classes, better paid teachers, nursery education for all, classroom assistants in all schools. The list is comprehensive. In fact, the list is so comprehensive it makes a mockery of the SNP's attempt to defend their own record by challenging and attacking us. Now, I would actually put another challenge to the Education Minister herself. Find one teacher who does not believe that the previous administration made a significant difference to Scottish education. But perhaps what is most ironic, or frankly just depressing this morning, is that I used to think there was a shared agenda, and that at least some on the Liberal Social Democratic wing of the SNP, if that exists, identified with our vision and shared some of our commitment to education. In government, as in opposition, SNP ministers have not been shy of using our language or adopting our policies. So, for example, in theory at least, we have had this morning the SNP promising to continue the reforms encapsulated in the Curriculum for Excellence. But in practice, we find ministers will not provide any money for implementation and no money for CPD. Then they wonder why teachers are unhappy. Take another example, the SNP commitment to build schools, mentioned by Margaret Smith, Karen Whitefield, Rona Brank and virtually everybody that has spoken this morning. It's a target framed not by their own targets, not set by themselves, by a reference to our benchmark, to match us brick for brick. How hollow does repeating that promise sound now? Brick for brick, we will match you. But in practice, their dogmatic opposition to PPP comes before the needs of our children. And 2 years on, we found not one new school commissioned across the whole of Scotland. And in fact, given the shortfall in public construction projects, SNP dogma appears to come before the needs of our economy too. Just more recently, over the last couple of weeks, the SNP, all the members of the Education Committee, have found out that the SNP have similarly refused to fund the additional support for learning bill. Ministers talk a good game. They say they want to work with the committee to identify and improve the rights of Scotland's most vulnerable children, but when put to the test, they refuse to will the means to make it happen. This week has also seen, as many have reminded us, seen Scotland students issue a gentle reminder to the Minister to address their needs, and in particular the issue of hardship. They could have castigated the SNP for breaking their promise to dump the debt, but instead they restricted their question to just questioning, is this the best use of a limited set of money in tackling student hardship? And as Murdo Fraser pointed out, the Minister's response was an arrogant and condescending put-down. Yes, Ms Campbell.
With the students, did you remind them if that you had won the election in 2007 that they still would have to be paying for their tuition?
Macintosh, and the member must wind up, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Yet again, we have, can I just say, what is sometimes a rather puerile defence, which is, never mind us, you were even worse than we were. Can I just say that is not an excuse for your failures. I am very disappointed in the SNP's contribution. The motion before us calls for Scottish ministers to learn from their mistakes. I urge members to support the motion and Labour's amendment.